Hello and welcome to another video on KurtzPel. I'm Zelp and today we are going to explore the breaking power of the hammer. So this includes abilities and skills that we can do. Most of them are common. I don't think I missed out any, but if I do, let me know down in the comments. Also, if you want to see me do this exactly the same thing for a different breaking weapon, let me know down in the comments as well, and what weapon would that be. Without further ado, let's take a look. So before we start, I want to point out that we cannot keep using different bosses. We have to use the same one over and over again simply because we do not have a lot of information. We don't know how much the health is, the endurance is, in terms of number after we do a damage. So we are doing this experiment based on the ratio that's being decreased. So for this, I chosen Dark Elf Shay. The reason why is because her friend, the one in blue and uses a bow, is very easily comboed because her super armor is really low. This means that she can be easily taken out of the picture and I have the chance to do a one-on-one and therefore do my testing. So we are going to look at the worst things that in my opinion, is used for breaking armor, and then we're going to slowly go up to the best. The video is also arranged in such a way that we're going to look at skills first, which are things that it uses mana, and then we're going to look at abilities later, which are things that uses stamina. So the first skill that we're going to look at is Crusade. First glance, it doesn't do a whole lot, but if the enemy is not moving or at certain angles, you can actually potentially do 2 hits instead of 1, and it does double the breaking power. So in that sense, it's pretty good, but it does fling you across the room, especially if you do not break the super armor of the enemy. It won't be able to carry the enemy along, and that means that you have to walk all the way back. You could stop it mid-air or when you hit the enemy. That is only if the enemy is already stunned, and that comes with a different kind of problem, because if the enemy is stunned, that means he doesn't have any endurance bar from the first place, so you won't be using this skill to break the endurance bar. I hope that makes sense. Let's take a look at the next skill. The next skill is going to be Hammer Smash. Now I put this a little bit higher from Crusade, although if you're lucky and Crusade hit twice, you do a lot more armor breaking. But then again, it is, I feel like it might be RNG, it might be position, like the position needs to be flawless or something. It might always hit twice if it's a large boss type, I'm not too sure, but I feel like this one deserves to be higher up simply because it has so much value. It could slow the enemy. If the endurance is broken at the 3rd hit, it can stun the enemy. It has a huge AoE, and also while doing the entire animation, you actually gain super armor, so you don't get knocked away that easily. People can't interrupt you that easily, and I believe you also take less damage. So that is why I rated the Hammer Smash better. Next, we're going to look at Gigantic Swing. Now this is super good. As you can see, it takes out so much of the enemy's endurance. There's really nothing much to say about this other than it's not as good as this one, which is your Holy Cross. Now, why I decided to give Holy Cross higher, even though initially it doesn't do that much, but the ground, which is electrified, can still do damage, and it can still reduce the enemy's endurance. If you time it correctly, you can put him in and take all the damage, and you can potentially remove all of that endurance bar with just one skill. Another good reason why Holy Cross is rated the best among all the abilities is because, unlike Gigantic Swing, Holy Cross is range, so it got a better rating. Now we're going to look at abilities. The first ability we're going to look at is a launch. This is where you press WW followed by left mouse button. And this launch, as you can see, it doesn't do much of a breaking, so don't use this for breaking. The next ability that we're gonna look at is okay, so this one I really like the animation. I like the sound effect of it. The only thing that I don't like is the damage, the amount of endurance it breaks, and also the small little circle that comes with hitting. So as you can see, I did hit the enemy, but it's not a lot, just slightly more than the launch. But the amount of effort you need to pull it off is just so much more. And also it's really hard to hit, in my opinion at least. So that's a miss. Let's try again. That's a miss. And this is a hit. But still, yeah, it's really little. So therefore, in terms of breaking armor, it's just not rated that high. Over here we have a combo, which is the chain swing. So if you look at it, it does a lot. But I feel that even though it does a lot, the duration it takes to get to a complete combo is a little bit too long. I feel like you can do a lot more endurance breaking if you were to use something else instead over and over again, other than to do this complete combo. There is some benefits to it though, because while you're spinning, you also gain super armor, so you see your body turn purple, and therefore it's hard to knock you down, and I believe you take less damage. So in that sense, it's pretty good. It's also one of the abilities that you can use to hold enemies that are knocked and kind of render them ragdoll or unable to move, staggered, whatever term that you want to use, for a good amount of time. But it is only rated, I would say, at the middle. Next we have, oh, we're actually doing one more just to show you how it looks like. Right, so there is a point to this. I'm trying to show you guys that while he's spinning, he's actually not breaking a lot of super armor. The thing that actually breaks a lot of his endurance is the first 2-3 hits and also the last 2 hits. While he's spinning, it's actually really little. But yeah, that's pretty much the point of the second clip. Now this is a quick charge where I hold down my right mouse button and then I try to hit the enemy. So it does a pretty good job. If you take a look, it's more than 50%. Here's another quick charge. Now I don't know if you realize, but his endurance did not fully recover, and this happens sometimes. So you have to keep in mind every single time when you see, if you want to, you can go back and take a look again. If you see that it's not fully recovered, you have to take into the lack of endurance into account to make your judgment. So I've done that, so don't worry. So this is another quick charge. Now I'm going to show you a fully charged attack. Okay, very nice. Like, I would say 70%, maybe even 75, 80-ish. This is another one. Now this is the part where it got me a little bit confused, because technically it broke a lot more than the first one, and I didn't know why at first until I did a little bit more research. I found out that at certain angles, depending on how close you are to the enemy, you can actually pull off more than one hit. So if you trigger it by letting go your charge at a certain distance, you can only hit him once. But if you were to not let go, hold on it, and move towards the enemy, potentially you can do 3 hits or more. And when I say more, I believe the highest I've actually seen is 4 hits. So imagine doing 4 hits with this. It does a lot of endurance removal, which is why it's really good. So this is a quick charge again, but I release early, and I ended up doing really little damage, unlike the first 2 quick charges I show you. So do not release early, I guess. If you hold on to it, potentially you can do a lot of breaking, and this is why this skill is rated higher. Finally, we have this, which is basically a follow-up to your charge attack. All you have to do is just keep clicking right click and you'll pull this off. You do have to charge it for at least 2 times before you can do this. But in my opinion, it's not really that useful. Even though it can remove a lot of the enemy's endurance, it's quite hard to hit the target considering that you're always moving. And if it's a small sized boss, when you hit the second hit and it doesn't deplete the endurance, it's not going to be able to pull the enemy up and continue the hits that you do in the air. So all in all, it also causes a lot of stamina to pull off, which is why I feel like even though if it's really good, it's not ideal. I feel like you can also do a lot just by doing charge attack over and over again. So that is what I feel. Now, from all of the testing that you see, there are still a lot of variables that may come into play to make whatever you see different. For example, I noticed that the damage that you do is not always consistent because that is affected by some kind of RNG that changes the value. Unlike a game like Warframe where the value is always the same, this one actually changes from hundreds to 80s to 200 sometimes. And then there's also the fact that critical comes into play, and I don't know if critical actually affects the amount of endurance is removed. Now, to me, I feel like the abilities, the normal attack, they're all allocated with a certain amount of endurance breaking, which means that if you're doing the same thing over and over again, the endurance that is being removed is the same. But I am still not really sure if it's tied to damage as well. So if you have, let's say, higher stats on damage, or if you have, let's say your skill has a sub comma gem that is increasing your damage, will it actually break the endurance more? So there are still some things that I've yet to test. There's also the enemy, because sometimes the enemy does something when you attack him. He might be doing a skill, he might be doing a charge attack or something, and those situations might also give them some kind of damage reduction or super armor, like the way we get our purple look when we do certain abilities. So with all that said, I want you guys to keep that in mind. But I feel like this kind of testing does help you have a rough idea of what is best for breaking endurance. And let me know down in the comments what you guys think. This video is going to be important for my next upcoming video. So yeah, I hope the video is helpful and I'll see you guys tomorrow.